Hello, everyone. Good morning, evening, or afternoon. Welcome to this week's session of Market Movers. I am Pedro, the senior blockchain analyst here at DappRadar, and today we will be discussing a topic that might be unpopular for some, but still a very relevant topic. And yeah, we're talking about security, how blockchain breaches became one of the favorite targets for hackers. To talk about it and discuss about blockchain bridges, I have the pleasure to be joined today by Modesta Massoa, the head of research and finance here at DappRadar. How are you doing today, Modesta?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing pretty well today. Thanks for asking, Pedro. And I'm really excited to be here today because I think always security might not always be the most popular topic, but extremely important one. Looking
Exactly.
forward.
Yeah. Perfect. So, just before we begin, I want to remind everyone here that, as always, we'll be recording the session so you can listen to this or any of our previous shows on the Radar's YouTube channel. And most importantly, for today's event, we will be giving away some POs, NFT attendance badges. So all you have to do is message Cornelia, our Discord moderator, and she will let you know the steps to claim your NFT badges POs. Okay, so security. In recent weeks, actually a couple of weeks ago, we witnessed how one of the largest thefts in the history of cryptocurrencies when a hacker group targeted the Ronin bridge, stealing 125,000 Ethereum and 25.5 million USDC, which is one of the largest hacks in history. Um, so, Modesta, I don't know what context do you want to give before jumping in straight away into the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the largest hacks we saw in the blockchain space. And it's very concerning, the one I would say. And just to give you a bit of a context, so although it was one of the largest in the last like more than a year, we already saw 2.5 billion loss in different kind of attacks, hacks, and so on, which is really concerning, and which means that the topic is really growing. So this is something that really needs more attention from, first of all, like right now, we are letting everyone know, we're talking about, writing about that. We're also we'll try to share like some of the ideas, what needs to be done during this call. But also, a lot of, bridges developers, and also blockchains, to take more attention, not like a secondary attention, to this topic because, well, it's growing. And it's very it might ended up in a way bigger losses because, well, everyone, the attention is very high, and that attention is also very high just because if you look into top 15 blocked bridges right now, total value locked within these top 15 is around 50 billion. Well, the amounts are remarkable, which means someone who's looking for some sort of bounty, out of a hack is also supposed to be quite interested, isn't it, Pedro?
Yeah, I mean, you can see how the value is increasing in the industry. Sorry. On one hand, like you have DeFi, the amount of total value lock in the industry surpassing 100 billion across different protocols, and you mentioned like 15 billion locked in these breaches. And probably we can also start explaining what these blockchain breaches are, right?
Yeah, of
Um,
course. And I think that you can do that quite perfectly. And I'll jump on if I see that I need to add any comment.
Perfect. So let's start explaining blockchain bridges. So similar to what we see in the physical world, where you use one bridge to get from place A to place B, blockchain bridges work in the same way. As DeFi and all these different uses are increasing, we feel the need to bridge assets from one place to another. So Bridges are basically platforms that work on smart contracts, right? These smart contracts basically understand that a user wants to transfer a token from, let's say, Ethereum to another network, let's say Solana, Avalanche, Polygon, whatever. So there are different approaches of how blockchain transfer these assets because, for example, there is a born and mint where the tokens that are being transferred are born on the sending chain and are minted on the new chain. But the most popular approach is called lock and mint. And with lock and mint, basically, if you let's talk about Ethereum Solana. So let's say that you want to transfer some ETH to Solana. So what is really happening in this blockchain bridge is that the user is locking the amount of ether that is wanting to transfer. So the smart contracts locks the ETH on the Ethereum side and then mints a replica of the Ethereum token. It is not the same token. It is not literally transferring the Ether from Ethereum to Solana. It is locking the Ether in Ethereum and minting a Solana version of the Ether, right? That is called grab ETH in, well, in Polygon or Solana and so on. So it is called lock and mint because you lock an asset on one side and you mint a new version of the same token on the other side. There are also platforms like Connext or Cbridge that perform using atomic swaps. And it's basically, this is literally a transfer of assets between bridges, but these are not the most used ones. Normally, when you're transferring from layer one to layer one or layer two to layer one to layer two, you're doing it through through lock and mint mechanism. So I hope that is clear. I don't know, Modesta. Was were I clear? Was I clear?
I think it was pretty clear, but just maybe I'll try to put that once again in a very simple manner. So bridges is basically the connector between two blockchains, right? And I mean, you, Pedro, explained perfectly clear that it's not that you actually transferring the money, you know, like I have a ETH on an Ethereum and I'm transferring to Solana. I'm actually locking it and getting, well, Solana version on ETH there. So I think it's just very important even for our like following topics to really understand, because we will be talking about hacks, so how this all bridges works. And I think sometimes I also see some users, some other people might confuse these things, that they will feel that they are getting the same token, but it's not. So that's why all bridges security is very important, because to some extent it works like similarly as DeFi, right? Because where you go and lock your tokens, right, and you get, like, for example, LP tokens, right, for that when you provide the liquidity. So this is something quite similar to that, right, Pedro?
Yeah, exactly. So, mm, and again, like it's all based on smart contract logic, like programmatic
Exactly.
code. So yeah, exactly. You I think you nailed it because on DeFi you log your tokens on a contract, and this contract gives you LP tokens in exchange, and with these LP tokens you can then stake it again, and this is the farming process. Here, instead of giving you the LP tokens, they are giving you a replica of the asset that is bridge bought on the other chain. So yeah, but the analogy is the same. And this is what we know as cross-chain functionalities. That is
Exactly.
basic to understand interoperability. But
Yeah, and this means that, you know, it's not some like random platform. It's also like built on smart contracts, which means all the possible security issues are the same as you will see like on the single dApp or wherever, you know, in other like platforms, so all over the blockchain space. But what is, I think, important, but of course it works a bit in a different way, but the bases are very similar.
yeah, agree. Um, Also, something to bear in mind is that there are differences in the way that these smart contracts are securing or acting as custodians for the assets locked. Because there are two ways to see bridges. Like bridges can be centralized, where a central authority is in charge of custodying, acting as custodian for the log bridges, or maybe the custodian contracts are self-governed, are governed by algorithms or simple code logic. So it's also important to make a distinction between these two approaches of how bridges secure these assets.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, of course, security is an important thing, and maybe it's worth what doing explaining these security matters or security issues through a few examples. But before we get hit into that question, I think if you are not familiar with a while ago, a few months ago, back in January, Vitalik, founder of Ethereum, actually also already said his concerns about this, security issues. And to some extent, it seems, that this repeating, well, he said and he predicted that something similar might happen. He saw this as a huge issue. And unfortunately, we do have a few cases which we're going to disclose right now. Did you saw the message? Because I think it was all over the media, Pedro, and a lot of course, then backed the story once these issues actually appeared. Did you saw those communications, Pedro?
Yeah, it was around New Year actually. Yeah, we saw a subreddit post like it was. Yeah, it came out to mainstream. Where yeah, I'm gonna quote Vitalik words actually. The fundamental security limits of bridges are actually a key reason why I am optimistic about a multi-chain blockchain ecosystem, and I am pessimistic about cross-chain applications. Those were the exact words of Vitalik on January 7 on a subreddit post. And actually, I mentioned previously that bridges are cross-chain applications. Um, we understand cross-chain because we are, as we said, like we are not literally transferring assets from point A to point B. We are locking assets in point B and creating new assets in point B. So this is why it is called cross-chain. Whereas a multi-chain is an approach that it's already implemented in different protocols. Like, let's take the example of Aave. Aave, the borrowing and lending protocol that was deployed originally on Ethereum, is also available on Avalanche and on Polygon, for example. But if you want to interact with Aave, you interact with Aave in Ethereum using ERC20 tokens. And if you interact with Aave in Avalanche, you will interact with Avalanche native tokens. This is called multi-chain, a single application that can be used without an overlaying different networks, but with their respective native tokens, rather than a multi-chain approach where the tokens are basically just grabbed from one network to another. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. I would like to get back maybe to these a few examples if we may, but before we do that, I just want to for those who join a bit later, and I see that there is quite a few. So just some statistics repetition. So top 15 bridges hold like 50 billion of well, dollars locked in them. And some of the top bridges like Ronin and other face like Wormhole faced some issues. Wormhole is Solana bridge, by the way, for those who don't know. How about we take a look what actually happened within these bridges? Because although these cases are like one of the largest, well, bridges, well, lost, which was caused by bridges security issues. They were completely different, right, Pedro? And well, the essence of it was well, is way different and technical and in other matters, right?
Yeah, correct. Like I before we repeated Vitalik thoughts. I was mentioning the difference of trusted and trustless custodian bridges. The way in which a bridge is it's being secured. So trusted bridges are more centralized platforms. These are most of the layer one to layer one bridges, like for example the Polygon Ethereum bridge, the Polygon bridge, the Avalanche bridge, the Ronin bridge also, right? These are custodied by a central entity where number of multi-signatures are required to validate transactions in this bridge, right? But these transactions are just basically approved by different wallets. Either it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 20. They are still centralized. They are owned by a person, and this person has the authority to approve or disapprove transactions between blockchains. And we also have trustless bridges that work rely more on algorithms and programmatic codes inside these smart contracts. And examples are the Solana wormhole, which even though it is a layer one to layer one, it is based on smart contracts, pure logic. And we have other examples like the Just Cryptos or the Near Bridge, the Rainbow Bridge to move assets between Aurora, Near, and Ethereum. So those are two examples of trustless bridge.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if we review like the last hacks to bridges, we see difference in what happened, because in February, the Solana wormhole, which is the bridge to transfer assets from Ethereum to Solana, was exploited. And last week, well, a couple of weeks ago, we see that the Ronin bridge was attacked, right? And the Ronin bridge an example of a centralized bridge, whereas the Solana wormhole is a decentralized or trustless bridge, which their smart contracts had vulnerabilities, whereas the Ronin bridge had more to do in the way of how the assets were being secured and custodied by the Sky Mavis team.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, go.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I'll jump a bit later then.
No, and I probably it's a bit difficult to understand at first glance, but I will try to make it clearer. Let's review first the Solana wormhole. That it's a decentralized bridge, but it had vulnerabilities in its smart contracts, right? So this is where the hackers exploit the breach. So the Solana wormhole has two contracts, one of each side of the chain, one on Ethereum and another one on Solana. So on Ethereum, you basically say, okay, I want to breach 10 ETH to Solana grab ETH. Okay, so I lock the ETH in Ethereum, and then the Solana contract, the Solana custodian contract reads that I am locking 10 ETH, and on Solana I am getting 10 ETH in exchange. What happened here is that there was a vulnerability in the smart contract. The hacker, which by the way, it's impressive to see how these hackers find out these vulnerabilities. The hacker found out that there was a way to trick or deceive the custodian contract in Solana. So what he did is lock just zero point 0.1 ETH, the value of zero point 0.1 ETH in Ethereum, and before that transaction was approved, he managed to communicate in Solana to the custodian contract and tricked the custodian contract in making it think that he was in fact locking over 120,000 ETH, which in fact is a big lie because he was only locking zero point 0.1. So he tricked the contract, making him think that he was locking 120,000 ETH, and he received, of course, 120,000 grab ETH on Solana, right? So this was the vulnerability that the hacker exploited on the Solana wormhole. And as you can see, it's purely a vulnerability on a smart contract level, an error or a gap that the logic of this custodian contract on Solana had. And if we compare to the Ronin breach, to the Ronin hack breach, this was a pure mistake or error on the way the custodian contracts were organized. Why? Because to approve transactions in Ronin, you need 5 multi-signatures approvals out of the 8 multi-sigs that the Sky Mavis team holds. Sky Mavis, by the way, is the team, the studio behind Axie Infinity, the Ronin sidechain, and all this ecosystem, right? So Sky Mavis breach required 5 wallets to approve a transaction. However, 4 of these wallets were held by a single person. So the hacker learned this in using social engineering techniques, which we'll get to that later. Uh, the hacking group managed to get the 4 multi-signatures from Ronin at one single point. So at that time he only needed one more, and using again social engineering, he managed to get the private keys of the Axie DAO, and with the Axie DAO multi-sig wallet, he got the 5 signatures required to breach the hack and approve the transactions. So that is why he could approve basically himself. He was approving to move assets to his wallet, and yeah, that was the reason of the running bridge. And as you can see, one is like how let's say a centralization problem resulted in a loss of assets, and in Solana case was more of a smart contract vulnerability, some technical issue.
Yeah. And if to like put maybe something what Pedro just explained quite in details into like short summary. So both of the bridges were launched, I think, less than a year ago. This is something important to note, right? It takes time to like with each technology, with each platform, it takes time, to figure out all the bugs or like, to set up or put in place, proper approval process, for example, like in Ronin case. And even though these bridges usually are audited by quite legit, auditors, there's still a chance to find the bugs in those, smart contracts, or to find vulnerability in the way the like signature process, let's say, works for the transaction confirmation. And taking into consideration that the bridges like holds like tremendous amount of value, it attracts hackers, right? Attracts hackers to take a look, what is happening, to find these bugs, to find other vulnerabilities that each bridge platform suggests. And I mean, in a very wrong way, but I think we are really learning how that bridge security is being overlooked for some time. And even if you look like how many developers are involved on Ethereum or Solana network, for example, and then you look into the how many of them on the bridge itself, it's relatively small numbers, which just proves the point that the security is still not really like no one is really taking a lot of attention to it, which is really like you need to learn then afterwards the lesson from the very big hack. And this brings to the idea that all this situation will of course needs more attention. All these bridges needs more developers. All these bridges needs or maybe some incentive programs which started in the past and actually starting right now with some of the bridges in order to make them secure more. And even though you might say that maybe these bridges, you can wonder are these bridges is like is there any future here for the bridges? But I would assume these bridges really an important part of the of ecosystem which really helps for the users, to transfer funds, and if it's too expensive to, to interact with Ethereum dApps, we can easily do that and go into Solana and do the same things on different dApps, of course. So yeah, if just to put that into the summary, what Pedro explained in a technical way, because we assume that there's people, who are more technical, would like to, hear this, what happened on these bridges in more technical way and a bit more maybe like I like it, to put in less technical way, just to understand where we are standing with these bridge security matter right now.
Yeah, and
So,
actually, if just to add, like if we see the top 5 attacks in the history of cryptocurrencies, you see that 3 of those attacks were targeting breaches, right? Like the Poly network, which happened on July last year. The Ronin, well, the Poly network is, let's say, a centralized Binance Ethereum breach. The Ronin network that happened a couple of weeks ago, and the Solana wormhole that happened in February. So yeah, as you said, Modesta, like the value is increasing in DeFi, the value is increasing in these bridges. So they make more enticing targets for hackers and attackers.
yeah, exactly. And if to look, what can be done in a also very brief manner, just to improve this cross-chain security matter. So I think we can already learn from quite a few cases that, of course, these bridges needs, some of them, of course, not all of them, needs more validators, right? From the different wallets. And of course, audits is supposed to be, something that's supposed to be mandatory. Although in some cases, sometimes even a good auditing firm, cannot find all the bugs, but most likely they at least find some of them, which will helps to avoid more issues in the future. And what is also very interesting that also happened after this Poly security breach, Poly network, which they were actually the first which I started, bug bounty programs, which means that the developers, people who knows how to look for those security, let's say, issues within the smart contracts are invited and rewarded for that. And for example, Poly Network has a bounty fund of $500,000. Then the wormhole actually has the largest one of 10 million, and Ronin Bridge, I think it just was confirmed to have 1 million. If to look into the millions that was stolen, you might wonder if really like this like 500,000 is really like enough, to attract different kind of experts, to look for those vulnerabilities in the smart contracts. But something that wormhole put into reward systems seems quite interesting about. What is your take, Pedro, on this? Is this enough, to make the bridges secure more, or is this something more attention, more money supposed to be put into this topic?
I mean, if Vitalik is saying that the future is not cross-chain, probably we can take his advice for good. But I mean, in the short term, we are going to still require these platforms because, as you know, interoperability is one of the biggest, let's say, necessities of Web3, and to have a really healthy and complete blockchain ecosystem, communication between blockchains is required. So, I mean, for centralized bridges, like for the trusted one, I mean, on my perspective, to be very fair, like it was more a mistake of Skymatis because it is unthinkable that 4 multi-signature wallets were held by a single person. I mean, this is a basic single point of failure issue, and I mean, one thing is to increase the number of signatures required, but also like distribute them across different persons, make lives harder for the hackers. Like if a hacker breaches my computer and I'm holding all the multi signatures, like what's the need in the end for multi signatures if I hold all of them? So yeah, I agree with trying to diversify more the multi-sigs into more users. And in terms of smart contract breaches, like yeah, bug bounty programs are good. Like also can create a synergy between the project and community, like trying to reward your users, make them feel more trusted about your product, also get them to know better your product. So I think it's a win-win for both ends. And what actually is also interesting is the steps and actions that other organizations like centralized exchanges, we know centralized exchanges like Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, and so on, they are the main gateway to get everybody involved in crypto. Like we all started $100. You purchase your crypto, and you purchase your crypto through centralized exchanges. In the same way, when you want to cash out your rewards, you go to a centralized exchange and you convert your crypto into fiat. So working in conjunction with these centralized authorities and helping us identify the actors tracing these tokens. I remember in the Poly network, the hackers stole a good amount of Tether, like USDT. And the Tether team worked in conjunction with Poly Network, and they were able to identify the ID numbers of the tokens that were stolen, and they basically flagged them, and those tokens were basically unusable for anyone. So also this sense of cooperation between projects and between centralized exchanges and other type of audit experts, security experts, like for example also chain analysis that can help monitor and trace the origin of these funds is also interesting to explore, in my opinion.
Yes, indeed. And I think like I really like your idea about this community because it also helps you to, build like security question related communities, who goes and try to figure out and also at the same time earn, money while doing that. And I think we can like turn to the conclusion, but before that, I think it's the right time just to say, do you guys, anyone have any questions? Just jump in on the stage and raise them. And me and Pedro at the same time, we will have a quick summary of what we already said. Right, Pedro?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
guys. Yeah.
so I mean, I think we already share quite a few facts here today, right? Well, first of all, what are the bridges? Just to make it clear how it all works. And also, we already, like, especially Pedro mentioned quite a few examples how these hacks appeared and what triggered those hacks. But overall, and also, yeah, Pedro, interesting idea that you said that there is no cross-chain future, maybe just in a short term. Yeah, I would argue what the short-term future looks like because, well, we already see quite, this, bridges slash, protocol, different kind of blockchains, this infrastructure being built and being used quite a lot. I think there is still a need, to take more attention, regardless how many years we are going to use these bridges. And of course, it will take a lot of time to make sure, to establish proper, first of all, give enough attention to this topic, but also establish proper, very secure bridges, but also, these audit companies, to become more and more experienced, while analyzing different kind of attempts as such, and making sure that future smart contracts do not face the same issues here. But together with that, of course, yeah, as always, there is a chance to everyone to participate and try to help, try to help to other users, but also to yourself, by contributing to these bounty programs, as I mentioned before, and making sure that, well, none of the users actually experience any issues with that in the future. So, Pedro, what
Yeah,
closing
for
thoughts?
me, yeah, for me, I think I have a question. Like, um, we are talking about security, and well, we mentioned the words of Vitalik, who I'm sure knows something about the industry. But is the question is like, what will come first? Does regulation one of the other important aspects of the industry that we are seeing increase the trend about regulations? Do they catch up before the multi-chain approach, or regulations are something more achievable in the short term that can help us also mitigate the risk of these actors? Because in the end, if these big centralized exchanges like Kraken and Binance complete and start making these know your customer KYC AML processes as mandatory, and my question is, probably this will disincentivize malicious attackers in some way, because they won't have any. Well, of course, there is always a way, but there will be more difficult for them to cash out their stolen assets. I don't know. Like, for me, the question is whether regulation can catch up before a multi-chain technology and help us mitigate these events.
I think it's a long road
Yeah.
for regulators. I mean, we are doing it, and to do KYC. I'm not sure what you mean by that, to be honest, for 100%. But like, if you meant that, to do KYC for each wallet, maybe it might take
Oh, I
time,
mean, on
and
the
to take
centralized
actions,
exchange.
that like, how do you force them, to do that, for example, and so on. There is a certain process, and I think it's not the question of a year, but years. I mean, 5, 10 years, which will be needed to take a few steps, in order to uh, realize, like, figure out, what is working, what is not, because this is still the place where the KYC seems, at least when it comes to us, quite impossible. So, I mean, it's difficult to say, like, if this would help, to this specific breach security problem. Not sure if it's going to happen soon. If it's going to help, overall hacks that are happening, I'm pretty sure it will. Most likely it will help for the users, And if at some point, we will see like wallets, like approved wallets, so which you can actually trust because it was KYC or whatsoever, and like purchasing or accepting or whatever, doing with that, interacting with that wallet, I think this might be an easier result than actually expecting, that it would help bridges at least soon. Yeah, but this is of course my personal opinion, and I just like personally don't see, this regulation is coming, but it's not going to happen very very fast.
Yeah, it will take time. Also, for me, key is the cooperation between projects, because in the end, it's for the best of us that everybody wants to be um operating on a safe space. So we already see cooperation. Animoca Brands, Binance, and Anderson Horowitz like joined forces and raised 850 million to Sky Mavis, so they can start covering up their stolen assets. So
Yeah.
in the same way, if the protocols start working together, like, I don't know, like if Avalanche start working together with Ethereum developers, maybe they can make the Avalanche bridge a more secure place, and this applies to all the other bridges. So this is also something interesting to think about, and probably something that we are going to start seeing more and more often in the upcoming months.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of there's still a long way to row, a long road to row, and this is not something that we will answer. But I mean, yeah, I think this set of actions, this set of Yeah, actionable events can help us bring the space and make the space a more safe and secure place.
Yes, indeed. I agree with that. And also, like, these events, it's well, these big well, hacks is going not going to disappear, and I'm pretty sure a lot of is considering to do something about it. So what I mean that even after these hacks is like horrible, right? For the infrastructure, like for the adopting if these bridges, is going to work in the future, but it also has a very positive effect because it invites everyone to make sure, we are taking actions. They are trying to do something, and you always have to make a first step here. So if
Exactly.
you need to improve validator number, you will do that. If you need some bounty program, you will do that. Making these steps is going to help little by little, to improve security level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, guys, remember like to not click any suspicious links. Always review what you are approving in your MetaMask in any wallet you use before signing any transaction, and consider everyone a scammer unless it's proven otherwise. So please remain safe.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that there is no question, I understand. Still, like maybe a few minutes for you guys to jump in if you have any questions. Are you concerned about bridges, guys? I would assume yes, everyone is concerned. All
Everybody.
right. Yeah, and just once again, don't forget about popes. They're pretty
Yeah,
nice. Don't forget
message
to,
Cornelia and
yeah,
ask
message
for your
Cornelia.
post.
And
And
really, thanks a lot then for today. Thanks a lot for listening. It was a pleasure being today with you, Pedro. So yeah,
thank you,
thank you.
Modesta. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great conversation as always. Always glad to have you here in the space. I think that community has learned something. I hope that our audience and our community learns something new today. And yeah, I mean that would be all. Like remember each week at the same time, market movers discussing different crypto topics and the DappRadar Meet sessions where we talk down with relevant projects in the industry in our AMA weekly events. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and social media channels on Twitter, Discord, and YouTube. And that would be all for today. So,
Yes.
thanks again and have an amazing weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pedro.
Modesta.
And just a quick reminder, next week is going to be about games. So games fans, don't forget to come and join us next week.
Exactly. Yeah. Next week, games. Oh, yeah. We love
Yeah,
the game.
exciting.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.